Now here's what some people think about the current situation in Kenya. Yesterday was the 4th of July 2024. Incidentally, the 4th of July is a very important holiday in the United States of America. Expectations were high. People expected Maandamanos right across the country. But it didn't happen. And so, these people are saying, it is like this thing has fizzled out. It is like the Gen Zs have gotten tired. They have given up. Okay? And now, things are going to go back to normal. That is the view of very many, unfortunately, very many Kenyans. And I'm here to tell you that not only is that view very short-sighted, myopic in fact, but it is not the truth. It is not the reality. Okay? And I sincerely feel a lot of pity for the Ruto administration, because it seems that that is what the decision makers within the ruling party, ruling coalition, that is what they believe with all their hearts. Okay? Now everybody is allowed to have their own opinion. Okay? But having your opinion does not change the facts on the ground. And so on my show today, I want us to dive into the facts on the ground, analyze them thoroughly, and understand completely where we are today as a country. First of all, I don't know if you are aware, I have no idea if you noticed, that the coverage by the media of last Tuesday and the coverage of the media this 4th of July Thursday were not the same. Okay? Most of the major TV stations in our country were all over the place, almost in every county, to monitor progress of what was happening. And I will tell you the official position on that Tuesday. They were only expecting trouble in Nairobi and maybe, just maybe, in Mombasa. And in Kisumu, all they had to do was to stop access to the Kisumu State Lodge. That was the government's position on Tuesday. But what happened? We all clearly saw right before our eyes on television that this thing is countrywide. Okay? Now, the view of those who make decisions in government was that this coverage, this beautiful, very accurate coverage, was also inciting other Kenyans. Because according to them, people were going on television, seeing what is happening in other parts of the country, and then they were quickly preparing themselves and getting out on the streets for Maandamano. So in short, this coverage was incitement. And because of that, media houses were warned on the 4th of July about their coverage. They were told to tone it down. They are inciting Kenyans. And so as a result of that, we did not get a very clear picture of what was happening countrywide. Okay? For example, tensions were very high in Kisumu. And in fact, there were pockets of demonstrations. And indeed in many other parts of the country. But of course, if you're relying on television, you would not know that, would you? But having said all that, it is also true that the turnout on the 4th of July was very low, very disappointing. That is also the truth. And don't ask me why, because I don't know yet. As soon as I'm able to get enough information to figure out exactly what happened last Thursday, you can be sure you'll be the first to know. Okay? Now, the protests along the Nairobi-Mombasa road in Makueni County, around the Emali area, became so serious that they gained national attention. However, they were not as serious as what was witnessed in Migori. Okay, Migori is the county very close to the border with Tanzania, our neighboring country. And now let us move on to something else nobody is talking about, but has significant impact. Oh, the impact is so huge, but nobody has talked about it. Countrywide, the vast majority of businesses remained closed. Countrywide, a vast majority of Kenyans on the 4th of July did not go to work. It was worse than a public holiday, because many times in our country on public holidays, people go out shopping, people move around, people are up and about, away from their houses. However, on the 4th of July, most Kenyans were at home. Now, what is the big deal about that? Well, it's very simple. The government collects very little tax. Counties collect very little tax. Just to give you one example, there are no vehicles paying parking in the city or in the town. And in big cities, like the biggest we have, Nairobi, the amount of money collected daily from parking on a working day, like yesterday was supposed to be a working day, 4th of July, is colossal. So that one was lost, gone forever. It can't be recovered. Bottom line, that has an impact on government revenue collection. Now, going forward, if we're going to believe that the Gen Zs are serious, every Tuesday and Thursday will be a public holiday. Every Tuesday and Thursday, people will not work. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether the protests and demonstrations are visible or not. As long as people want to play safe, I'm not going to open my shop. I'm not going to the office. I don't want to risk being caught in the crossfire of the resources of the police. As long as Kenyans behave like that, Tuesdays and Thursdays are public holidays going forward. Now, the impact of that on our limping economy is enormous. Bila kizungu mingi, if the protesters, the Gen Zs and others, can succeed in keeping Tuesday and Thursday as public holidays in quotes, then the impact of it against the government is going to be huge. Let us note that fact very, very carefully, because it is important. Now, there is something else that is very much worth our attention. And let me put it like this, in a very simple question. Who is in charge of internal security in Kenya these days? Very simple question. And I know the naive will answer, of course the CS in charge of internal, Kithure Kindiki. Okay. Did you notice, over the last few days, Bwana Kindiki has played a very low profile. Especially last Tuesday, when there was so much chaos. Did you notice that? And then over the last few hours, it seems that Bwana Kindiki has made a major comeback. Okay, he's appearing on talk shows, he's talking a lot, issuing statements, etc., etc. Which should help anybody who had not noticed. It should help them to sit up and pay attention and ask, what happened before? Okay? And I'll tell you what happened before. It seems that this is a confirmation that the government is not united in dealing with this current crisis that is weighing down on it. Because there is a new very major player in internal security called Eden Duale, who's the CS Defense, which is supposed to be external. There seems to be a feeling amongst very powerful people within UDA and the government that Kindiki is soft. And this seems to be confirmed in Kithure Kindiki's latest statements, which have been very hard-hitting, very aggressive, which shows us a man who is trying to prove to who? To prove to others in government that what they think is not correct, that indeed he is tough as nails. Now, the problem with that is that as all this back and forth is going on within the government, which is supposed to be united as one against their common enemy, in quotes, as all this back and forth is going on, they are missing the point. And the point is, what they are facing, no other government before them has faced. This one needs more of thinking than more of being tough. Okay? That is the huge problem. And it's going to be very bad for this government, because it should be as clear as day. The way to deal with this crisis, this particular crisis right now, the last thing you want to do is to be tough. Because this one is not about being tough. Why? Because fear has gone. Fear has vanished. Please don't lose that point. It is critical in understanding what is unfolding in our country and what will happen going forward. And meanwhile, so many other disadvantages are building up against the government in returning the country to normalcy. For example, after what happened yesterday, July 4th, we can now say that the Gen Z protesters are unpredictable. If you're fighting an enemy who is predictable, it is much easier than fighting one who is unpredictable. That has been proven since the beginning of time. Okay? Something else. When the idea is to cool down temperatures of Kenyans, long-suffering Kenyans, things have been happening that are doing the exact opposite. For example, news has trickled through that a cabinet secretary of the Ruto regime was arrested in Dubai with over Kenya shillings 200 million in cash. Okay? Of course, I'm assuming this money was in foreign currency. And that person was bailed out by a telephone call from the president of Kenya. Now, we will avoid all the rumors because the identity of that cabinet secretary has not been verified or confirmed by this channel. However, that is not so important. At least it is not more important than the incident itself, because the country is going through so much economic hardships. And so, what was this Kenyan doing with 200 million in cash? Where were they taking it? Where did it come from? Although where it came from is quite easy to figure out. Chances are very high that was public funds. Our tax money. Okay? And at the same time, a Gazette notice came out confirming an increment in salaries for MPs and senators. And at the same time, the president has not moved with speed to completely dissolve his cabinet, to show Kenyans that he is serious. All that has been happening is talk. Okay? I want to discuss with the Gen Zs, I want this. Just talk, no action. Is that supposed to reduce or bring down the temperatures in Kenya? You tell me. And indeed, there are so many other things which have been happening which are a provocation to long-suffering Kenyans. And if it is true that the government has relaxed after the 4th of July as a result of what unfolded, then that is disaster, because we are moving dangerously close to the historic Sabasaba Day, which falls on Sunday, this Sunday. And then the most terrifying thing of all for this government, judging by the number of apologies from members of parliament who voted yes to their constituents, judging by the fact that many of them are still in hiding, very deep in hiding, one must ask the question, what happens when parliament reconvenes? Will these terrified members of parliament be able to follow instructions from State House? Will they? What do you think? Well, in my opinion, even if a few of them do, not all of them will. And what that means is that the dynamics within parliament, which Ruto has been very determined to control, the dynamics within our parliament have changed very dramatically, and this has happened overnight, suddenly, pop, just like that. And so we have a situation where somebody who is still very determined to rule Kenyans, very determined to remain president, will have to face Kenyans, a very vast majority of them, who are very determined, extremely determined, not to be ruled by him. So what do you think is going to happen? Now, I've already said this on our Telegram forum. What I believe is going to happen is something called slow burn. You know, when you decide to cook something slowly, you're not in a hurry, yeah, but you're still cooking it, but it is being done slowly. The circumstances which we now face, my friends, are such that the Ruto presidency will continue to suffer. And the way it will suffer is not a quick exit. It will suffer continuously, consistently, slowly, but forever always burning. Forever always the government will have heat. There is no other way this can play out. There isn't. Because, as we all know, we have on one side a man who is determined to remain president. On the other side, we have people who are determined not to have this man as president. And those people are powerful, even according to our constitution. And so, it should be crystal clear, if you're approaching this without emotions, it should be very clear as day, which side will win. But it is going to be a long, hard battle. And even as this battle rages, we can be sure this will not be a picnic from the government. You see, the next crisis which is unfolding, it is looming right before our eyes, is going to be money. Okay? Now, in case you didn't know, there were deals which were made which heavily depended on Finance Bill 2024 going through. Some of these deals were local. I'm afraid I will not talk about that today. But some of these deals were with international organizations like the IMF and the World Bank. Let me put it like this. These people are expecting some certain amount of money in repayments after the passing of Finance Bill 2024. Yeah, they're expecting some certain funds to start flowing in repaying the money they have advanced to Kenya. And so, when Finance Bill 2024 fell, there was great panic. Bila kizungu mingi, we are going to see consequences there. And I believe the coded messages from Zakayo that we saw, also in the interview, have something to do with that. You guys don't know what you have done. You don't know what the consequences are going to be. Lakini, mtajua mjui. Very shortly, you will see them. Now, what I believe the government is blind to is the fact that when this mess starts to unfold, the people, the Kenyan electorate, will place blame squarely on the door of the Kenyan president. Now, politically, that is a very big deal. It is huge. Okay? If you don't understand how, you just have to be patient for a few days, and it will become very clear to you. And so, do you still want to believe that nothing happened on the 4th of July? Do you still want to believe that the 4th of July was a setback for the long-suffering people of Kenya? Do you still want to believe that? Well, you're allowed to have your own opinion. And it is okay for you to keep on thinking like that. But I hope I've convinced many of you that that is not the reality. And that in fact, the government is already in a hole, and the problem is they are failing to follow the very simple rule, the words of wisdom that tell us, when you find yourself in a hole, what is the first thing you should do? You should stop digging. This government has not stopped digging. That is the tragedy. Now, super fast before I go, just a reminder, this is that season of gifting to Kumekucha Chris. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart who have already responded. Thank you very much from the very bottom of my heart. And I've already said a prayer for you, and I'm going to continue to say prayers for you, as I will for those of you who are still on the way coming. Okay, you can see details on your screens right now. You can make use of them. They're also repeated in the description area below this video on YouTube, and also in the comments area. All for a better Kenya. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.